السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: المسلم من سلم المسلمون من لسانه ويده، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم، ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي رب زدني علما. My respected elders and brothers, for the last few Jummahs, we have been discussing this topic that Islam is not just a religion, it's a way of life. Quickly, in a minute, I'll review what we said last time, and then inshallah we move forward. The hadith that is the base of this topic is the famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, more or less to the nearest meaning that a Muslim is one that other Muslims are safe from the harm of his tongue and from the harm and suffering of his limbs. Last time we discussed that there are certain cases we think we are not disturbing anyone. We are not causing pain or suffering to anyone, but we are in fact. And I gave the example that when brothers sometime enter the masjid, couple of brothers are praying salah, couple are doing a zikr of Allah, maybe one or two are just sitting idle, one or two are doing the recitation of the Quran, and the brother says loudly Assalamu alaikum when he enters the masjid. He should not be saying this in a manner that he disturbs the salah of the person praying salah. He disturbs the recitation of the Quran for the person who is reciting the Quran. And likewise we mention, may Allah forbid, somebody ends up in a disease that his coming in the masjid becomes a source of pain and suffering for others, then the hukum, the legal ruling that salah with jama'ah, the jama'ah is either mandatory or either sunnah mu'akkada, that ruling is relieved. But rather it's not even permissible for him to come in the masjid, because in this case his coming is a source of pain and suffering for others. Where does this all come out from? This all comes out from this concept, this theory that all the commands of Allah and the sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are divided into 5 categories. And if me and you are trying to implement these 5 categories in our life, then we are considered a complete Muslim in the sight of Allah. If not, then we are incomplete believers in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every Jummah we repeat those 5 categories, imaniyat, what we call in English as our beliefs, or aqaid, acts of worship, ibadat, dealings, ma'amalat, social life, ma'asharat, and inner ethics, akhlaqiyat. These are the 5 different categories that the entire deen is encompassed in these categories, and the examples I gave are related to social life, are related to ma'ashara. A few more examples and then we'll move forward. Sometimes the masjid is empty, Jamaat is not going on. After the first salah finishes, brothers scatter in the masjid, which is fine, to pray their sunnahs. Intentionally or unintentionally, sometimes we position ourselves in a manner that the brother who is in front of us wants to leave, he finishes the salah early. He cannot leave. We blocked his way. The masjid is not small. Yes, if the masjid has no space, then it's not our fault, my and your fault. The masjid is so big, take the example of this masjid, but still we are standing in a manner that you are not allowing the other person to leave. Either he waits for you, or either he becomes sinful and goes in front of you. We can pray behind the pillar, we can put a sutra in front of us, we can stand in a corner. Sometimes people come, the entire main masjid is empty and they stand all the way in the corner. That people who are sitting in the front have to make sure that they don't go in front of them. So these are examples of social life, that sometimes we are doing acts of worship and we are becoming a source of pain and suffering for others. The kissing of Hajr Aswad, black stone, is considered an ibadat, is an act of worship. The hadith says a person who kisses the black stone, in other words, it absorbs all his sins. Allah cleans him from the sins. But if you cause pain and suffering to a person, you hit him, you push him while going to Hajr Aswad, it doesn't remain an act of worship. It becomes a sin, because you are causing pain and suffering to others to fulfill a sunnah or to fulfill a recommended act. These are examples that such minute are the rulings of Islamic social life that sometimes me and you don't even realize, but we become a cause of pain and suffering for others. Moving forward, let's return back to the hadith from where we started. A believer is one that from the harm of his tongue and from the harm of his limbs, other believers are saved. What is the harm of the tongue? क्या मिसाल है, क्या मतलब है ज़बान की तकलीफ़ का, जो ये हदीस बार बार हर जुमे में हम दोहरा रहे हैं. The harm of the tongue is you speak in a manner, your choice of words, your tone, and your attitude becomes a source of taklif and pain and suffering for the opposite person. Rather than speaking in a regular, straightforward manner, you speak sarcastically, with sarcasm, in a taunting manner. What is a taunt? Tana kisko kehte hain? Taunt means that you don't talk straightforward, you go the other way around, and literally you are slapping the person. This is taunting. ताना देने का मतलब है कि सीधी बात नहीं करे, लपेट के इतनी ऐसी बात करे कि गोया कि थप्पड़ मार दिया किसी को. इसको ताना देना कहते हैं. And unfortunately, the time me and you are living in, people consider those people intelligent, na'uzubillah, who know how to taunt. ऐसे ज़माने में मैं और आप रहते हैं कि जो जितना अच्छा ताना देता है, सामने वाला समझता है बड़ा ज़हीन आदमी है, इसको बात करने का अंदाज़ आता है. दीन तो हमें ये नहीं सिखाता ताना देना. दीन तो कहता है कि सीधी बात करो. या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनुत्तकुल्लाह वक़ूलू क़ौलन सदीदा. Allah says in the Quran, more or less to the nearest meaning, O people who believe, fear Allah, وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا, and talk in a straightforward manner that even a layman, jahil person can understand you. दीन क्या कहता है? ए ईमान वालो, अल्लाह से डरो और सीधी सुथरी बात करो कि जाहिल से जाहिल आदमी तुम्हारी बात को जो है वो समझ जाए. ये तो कुरान हमें कहता है. So this tells us, this is the meaning of harming from the tongue. Straightforward manner. But sometimes the question arises, we need to fix the mistake of the opposite person. He's saying something wrong. And if I try to correct him, he will still feel bad. Dil to uska phir bhi dukhega. So am I not allowed to rectify him? Am I not allowed to remind him of his mistake? Yes, sure, you should remind him. But remind him in a positive manner. For example, brother, please reconsider what you just said. Brother, the way you spoke to me, it wasn't good. Brother, fear Allah, whatever you are saying is not correct. This is a positive way of correcting the person. Still he feels bad, then there is no problem. एक है कि ये कहना बदतमीजी से जवाब देना, एक है कि भाई अल्लाह से डरो, जो आप बात कह रहे हैं इस पे दोबारा गौर कर लीजिए, ये बात सही नहीं है, या मैं आपकी बात से इत्तेफाक नहीं करता, मैं माजरत चाहता हूँ. ये भी बात करने का अंदाज है, और दूसरा अंदाज है गाली देकर बात करना. So we should learn these things. If the choice of words I use, the tone that I have, and the attitude that I show to you when I speak with you is the means of determining whether I am causing pain to you or not. As they say in English, put yourself in the shoes of others. I should ask myself that the way I am speaking, if the opposite person speaks with me, how would I feel? And this is the barometer. This is the tool to understand whether you are causing pain to the opposite person or whether you are not. The ulama say this hadith is the base, is the foundation of the Islamic social life. उलमा कहते हैं कि ये हदीस इस्लामी माशरती ज़िंदगी की बुनियाद है. इतनी सी हदीस al-Muslimu man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. Which hadith? A Muslim is one that other Muslims are safe from the harm of his tongue and from the harm of his limbs. This is the root of the entire Islamic social life. And the thermometer and the tool to make sure that am I acting on this hadith and you are acting on this hadith is another hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wa ahibba linnasi ma tuhibbu li nafsik. Choose and like for others what you choose and like for yourself. So if I want to test myself, am I acting upon the base hadith? I should ask myself, you don't need to point fingers upon me. I don't need to point fingers upon you. I go home today and ask myself, am I choosing for others what I'm choosing for myself? If the answer my conscience gives me that I am not, this meaning there's a problem in my social life. If my conscience tells me no, alhamdulillah, to somewhat extent I'm trying to do it, I'm trying to achieve it, then this means alhamdulillah somewhat Islamic social life me and you have. ये जो बुनियाद है इस्लामी माशरती ज़िंदगी की ये हदीस है कि मुसलमान वो है कि दूसरे मुसलमान उसकी ज़बान और हाथों की तकलीफ़ से महफूज रहे, ये बुनियाद है। अब मैं और आप टेस्ट कैसे करेंगे कि आया हम इस हदीस पे अमल कर रहे हैं कि नहीं? इसकी कसौटी भी आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने हमें दे दी। वो कसौटी क्या है? वो दूसरी हदीस है, व अहिब्ब लिन्नासि मा तुहिब्बु लिनफ्सिक। जो अपने लिए पसंद करो वही दूसरों के लिए पसंद करो। अब मैं और आप घर जाके अपने आप से सवाल कर लें तो हमें पता चल जाएगा कि हम इस बुनियादी हदीस पे अमल कर रहे हैं कि नहीं। अगर मैं वही चीज़ दूसरों के लिए पसंद करता हूँ जो अपने लिए करता हूँ तो इसका मतलब पहली हदीस पे मैं अमल कर रहा हूँ। और अगर मैं नहीं करता, मेरे लिए मेरा मेयार कुछ और है, दूसरों के लिए कुछ और है, तो फिर इसका मतलब उस बुनियादी हदीस पे मेरा अमल नहीं है। बहुत आसान है लेकिन थोड़े से गौर करने की बात है। सो दिस इज इस्लामिक सोशल लाइफ, दैट वी शुड चूज फॉर अदर्स व्हाट वी चूज फॉर आवरसेल्व्स। And I'll give just one example or two examples and wrap up and continue inshallah the next Jummah on this. What are the examples that we are causing pain and suffering to others? First, biggest and easy example is the breaking of promises. You gave time to someone. You signed a contract with someone, or you committed to someone that I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to come on this time. I'm going to give you this on so and so date. One is I'll try and I'll get back to you. That is not a promise. But one is that's finalized, verbally or written, that I'm going to do this, I'm going to come here, I'm going to give you this. And we are not able to fulfill this promise. One is unavoidable circumstances come in, that's forgiven by Allah. But intentionally laziness causes us not to fulfill this promise. We are getting two sins. One is the breaking of a promise, and one is causing pain and suffering to the opposite person. This is an example of causing pain and suffering by your tongue. A person is reciting Quran at home or in the masjid. How rewarding and how virtuous is to give salam. Islam says it is against the etiquettes to give salam to him. Not even this, Islam says it's not permissible to give salam to him. जो तिलावत कर रहा है कुरान की, दीन ये नहीं कहता कि अदब के खिलाफ है उसको सलाम करना, दीन कहता है नाजायज़ है उसको सलाम करना। Why? Because you are disturbing his recitation of the Quran. He has to stop his recitation in the middle, and then he has to turn his face to you and then say salam. So this is causing pain by the tongue. You see the difference? Apparently shaitan shows us that we are doing something good, but lack of knowledge drags us towards a sin. Yes, emergency happens. You need to talk to that person. It's an emergency, that's fine. If it's not an emergency, still you want to talk to that person, you can't wait, come and sit down beside him. He would know something is wrong. You want to speak with him. He stops his recitation of the Quran, then you give salam to him. Then you speak with him. These are, and there are more examples, inshallah, I'll continue. These are examples that how we harm and cause pain and suffering to others by the tongue. The hadith says, सबसे बड़ी वजह जिसकी वजह से क़यामत के दिन इंसान को ऊंधे मुंह जहन्नुम में फेंका जाएगा, वो ज़बान है। The organ of the body that is the biggest reason of a person being dragged into Jahannam or thrown into the hellfire headlong, not regularly, headlong into Jahannam. The biggest reason is the misuse of the tongue. Whatever was said and heard, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding of these things. Ameen. Brothers who are praying the sunnah, requested inshallah to please fill in the gaps. If there is any space in front of us, we move forward inshallah. Fill in the gaps. Once the line is complete, then we start our salah. हमारे आगे अगर जगह हो तो आगे होकर जल्दी से उसको पुर कर लें।